The city lights shimmered through the tall glass windows of Ethan Blackwood's office, but tonight their glow felt cold and distant. He stood behind his mahogany desk staring at the woman before him, Sophia. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes held strength he had never noticed before. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice breaking the silence like a secret she wished she didn't have to tell. "I'm pregnant." The world around him seemed to stop. For a moment, the steady hum of the city, the ticking of the clock, even the faint buzz of the air conditioning faded away. His breath caught in his chest as her words echoed through his mind. Pregnant. His. 1,000 thoughts collided inside him. The board meetings, the shareholders, the press. Everything he had built could crumble with one rumor. He looked at Sophia, her face pale but filled with quiet hope, and felt a strange warmth flicker deep inside him, a feeling he had buried years ago. But before it could grow, pride and fear smothered it. He straightened his tie, his expression turning cold. "You'll be fine," he said sharply. "You always find a way." She blinked, confusion and hurt crossing her face. "Ethan, this isn't just about me," she whispered. "It's about us." But he had already turned away, staring out at the glittering skyline that once made him feel powerful. In that moment, the man who conquered markets could not conquer his own fear. He didn't see the tears Sophia fought to hold back, nor did he see the door close behind her. All he heard was his own heartbeat, loud and heavy, like the sound of something breaking, something he didn't yet understand. Rain poured heavily the night Sophia left his building, her footsteps echoing against the wet pavement as if the city itself wanted to remember her pain. She walked fast, clutching her bag to her chest, afraid that if she stopped, the weight of what had just happened would crush her completely. Behind her, in that tall tower of glass and steel, Ethan poured himself another drink, trying to convince himself he had done the right thing. His reflection in the window stared back, confident, composed, powerful. But his eyes betrayed him. For the first time in years, he didn't see success. He saw emptiness. The silence in his penthouse that night felt different, heavier, as if every shadow whispered the words he'd thrown at her. "Your problems aren't mine." Sophia, meanwhile, sat alone in a small cafe hours later, her hands shaking as she held a cup of tea she couldn't afford. She placed her hand gently over her stomach, whispering, "You're not alone. I promise." The world outside rushed on, but inside a quiet strength began to form within her, a strength she never knew she had. She moved to a smaller apartment the next week, working double shifts to save what little she could. Each night, she fell asleep to the sound of her heart beating alongside another's, reminding her she had something worth fighting for. Ethan tried to lose himself in business. Bigger deals, longer hours, endless meetings, anything to keep from thinking about her. But no matter how many contracts he signed, her voice lingered. The city lights no longer felt like victory. They were reminders of everything he had lost without even realizing it. He told himself that love was weakness, but deep down, something inside him had already begun to unravel. The part of him that still remembered what it meant to care. Years passed, but time did not dull the ache. Sophia's life had become a quiet rhythm of sacrifice and love. Her small apartment smelled faintly of lavender and soap, and though the furniture was worn, it carried warmth, the kind that money could never buy. Her son Leo was now 6, full of energy and laughter. Every morning he ran into her arms before school, his blue eyes, Ethan's eyes, shining with curiosity. Those eyes were both her comfort and her pain. Every time she looked into them, she saw the man who had turned away, the man who didn't know his son's laugh or the way he clung to her when scared. Yet she never spoke Ethan's name. She simply said his father lived far away. Leo would nod, trusting her, though sometimes she caught him watching other children with their fathers and looking away too quickly. Ethan, on the other hand, lived in a mansion where silence echoed through endless rooms. His success had grown, new towers, new partnerships, but each victory felt hollow. Late at night, when he walked past the empty nursery his housekeeper had decorated years ago, a quiet guilt crept in. He often found himself imagining a small boy with brown curls and blue eyes running down those halls, laughter filling the air that had become too still. He would shake the thought away and bury himself in work again. But guilt is not so easily silenced. It hides in the spaces between words, in the moments when success no longer feels like triumph. One evening, while attending a charity gala, Ethan's gaze fell upon a painting being auctioned, a mother and child beneath a streetlight, their hands entwined. The artist's name caught his breath, Sophia Lane. His fingers tightened around the glass he held, and for the first time in years, the world around him blurred. He realized then that no amount of money could buy back the moments he had thrown away. Ethan couldn't take his eyes off the painting. The way the mother looked down at her child, tired but proud, fragile yet unbreakable, stirred something deep inside him. He felt a tightness in his chest that he hadn't felt in years. When the bidding began, he raised his hand without hesitation. He didn't know why he wanted it so badly, only that it felt like a piece of his own story staring back at him. When the auctioneer called his name as the highest bidder, applause filled the room, but Ethan barely heard it. He stared at the painting, his reflection blending into the glass frame, a man who had everything except peace. Later that night, he searched for Sophia's name online. Her face appeared in a small article about local artists who used their pain to create hope. There she was, standing beside her son, Leo. The resemblance hit him like lightning. The boy's blue eyes mirrored his own. Ethan's heart dropped. He had no doubt. The child was his. He sat there for hours, staring at the screen, his mind a storm of regret and disbelief. The world he had built, the one that had cost him love, warmth, and truth, suddenly felt meaningless. All the years he had spent chasing perfection had led him to this moment of unbearable clarity. Somewhere out there was a boy growing up without knowing his father. Somewhere out there was Sophia, who had once trusted him with her heart and received only rejection in return. For the first time in his life, Ethan didn't care about reputation, about control, or the empire he had built. He wanted only one thing, to make things right, no matter how late it was. That night, for the first time in years, he didn't sleep. He sat by the window until sunrise, his thoughts filled with the image of a little boy who didn't even know his name. Morning light spilled through the curtains of Ethan's penthouse as he made the decision that had haunted him for years. He was going to find Sophia.
He didn't tell his assistant, didn't schedule a driver, didn't even glance at his phone.
For once, the powerful CEO stepped into the world as just a man carrying the weight of his mistakes. The address he found wasn't glamorous. It led him to a quiet neighborhood lined with small houses and blooming trees. Children played on the sidewalks, their laughter echoing through the streets, a sound Ethan hadn't heard in years without feeling a hollow ache. When he finally stopped in front of a small, paint-chipped house, his heartbeat thundered. Through the window, he saw a woman sitting at a table with a young boy beside her. Sophia looked older, her hair tied back, her expression calm yet strong. But it was the boy who took Ethan's breath away, those same blue eyes curious and bright. He froze at the gate, unable to move. How do you knock on a door that opens to the past you destroyed? Sophia noticed him first. Her smile faded, replaced by disbelief, then guarded silence. She opened the door slowly, her voice steady but cold. "Why are you here, Ethan?" He struggled for words, every sentence rehearsed in his head vanishing in an instant. "I saw your work," he said softly. "I didn't know—" "You didn't want to know," she interrupted, her eyes fierce but glistening. Behind her, Leo peeked curiously, clutching a small toy car. Ethan looked at him, his heart breaking and mending all at once. "He's beautiful," Ethan whispered, his voice trembling. Sophia's expression softened slightly, though pain lingered. "He's everything," she replied quietly. In that moment, Ethan understood. Success had never made him rich. What he had lost was the only thing that could have made him whole. Ethan stood there, frozen on the doorstep, feeling smaller than he ever had in his life. The man who once commanded boardrooms and controlled fortunes couldn't find the courage to lift his eyes. "Sophia, I don't expect forgiveness," he said finally, his voice breaking with honesty. "I just need to tell you I was wrong." For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was heavy, filled with years of unspoken pain. Then Leo's small voice cut through it, soft and curious. "Mom, who is he?" Sophia's heart clenched. She had imagined this day for years, yet now that it had arrived, she didn't know what to say. Ethan knelt slowly, meeting Leo's wide blue eyes. "I'm someone who should have been here a long time ago," he said gently. There was no pride, no control, only truth. Leo tilted his head, studying the man who looked so much like him. "Are you my dad?" The question was simple, yet it shattered Ethan completely. His throat tightened as he nodded. "Yes, if you'll let me be." Tears blurred Sophia's vision. For so long, she had built walls to protect her heart. But seeing Ethan kneel before their son, trembling, she felt something shift. Time couldn't erase the past, but it could change what came next. "Leo," she whispered, "your dad wants to get to know you." The boy's smile was small but bright. "Can he come to my game tomorrow?" Ethan's breath caught. That one innocent question meant more than any second chance he had ever been given. He smiled through his tears. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." Later that night, Ethan sat in his car outside their home, staring at the stars for the first time in years. For once, the city lights didn't blind him. They only reminded him of how far he had fallen, and how far he was willing to climb again. Not for power, not for redemption, but for love, the one thing that had waited for him all along.